Welcome to the Set to Lead podcast, the online mentoring platform for emerging and current leaders. My name is Marianne Samdi, leadership coach and talent development expert, and I will be your host.
Good morning, Dr. Goode. Welcome to the show.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you this morning?
Excellent.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited about this topic. I think intellectually we know diversity makes sense for the business, but I think there's a lot of folks out there that don't know how to implement it properly. So I'm looking forward for you to clear up some myths, explain how this works, and how to make a difference as leaders and managers in our organizations using this whole diversity concept.
Excellent.
For starters, Dr. Goode, how did you get on this path of diversity and inclusion?
So I got on this path from to being able to manage diversity in organizations. I was an HR professional with Georgia Power and the Southern Company, and when the company decided that it wanted to take some intentional actions to change its culture from one that was pretty much top down, white male driven, to one that was more open and inclusive. The company was very intentional about who they wanted to have as a part of the team that would lead that effort. And so at that time, I was hired by the vice president of diversity and inclusion, and asked to join his team to run the day-to-day operation, which would include implementing at that time, and we're talking about 2006. We had 33 specific initiatives that we had identified that we needed to implement in order to change the culture of the company. So I've been directly involved in this since 2006.
Wow, that sounds great. And in these roles, so you started at Georgia Power, and then when you left, you continued on this career path, correct?
That is correct. I left Georgia Power in 2013 to go to a similar organization, but one that was in my hometown. I was kind of missing my hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and utility, Pennsylvania Power and Light. Wanted to start a program, a diversity program that was very similar to Georgia Power's, and they asked me would I be willing to come back home, kind of like LeBron James did, and help the home team kind of do some of the things that I had helped Georgia Power do. So I went back there for a couple of years and helped start to build the foundation of their team.
Wow. How hard or how easy was it for you to make an impact in those roles?
It wasn't the work. I don't want to say that the work is not hard, but let me start from the positive and say that the work was made easier by the fact that in both cases, there were CEOs who were strongly committed to changing the culture of their company. Both of these companies, at least in the in the respect of both Georgia Power and Pennsylvania Power and Light, both companies over 100 years old, basically had a culture that had been in place for a long time, but that culture was beginning to put them at a competitive disadvantage because they weren't able to recruit and maintain the talent that they needed, because that talent was by and large emerging from a more diverse labor force. And the companies had not been very intentional about going to places where the talent that they needed was emerging from. So the work was made easier because we had very, very strong, committed leadership from the top who could clearly communicate it to the rest of the organization that changing the culture was not only something that was nice to do, it was something that absolutely needed to happen if the company was going to be successful. So that made what is hard work, which is organizational change work, it made it just a little bit easier because there was top level leadership support.
Mm-hmm. So for those that don't have that top level support, but still want to make change from where they sit or where they have influence, what are your suggestions? Because I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there that don't have support from the top, but does that mean that you do nothing when there's a need to address diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, so again, in my roles, my job was to bring about enterprise-wide culture change. But that doesn't mean that if you are a supervisor or manager of a team, there are things that you can do specifically on your team to increase the diversity of your team, to leverage that diversity once you get it, and to do it in a way that everybody on the team feels inclusive. There are three things specifically that if you are a manager of a team, and every team is diverse. They're going to be diverse in a number of respects, and obviously there's always race, gender, age, and the ones that we know about. But I would ask the managers that are tuning in to today's program to think about your team's diversity in terms of diversity of thought, background, perspective, and to ask yourself, are you leveraging the full range of diversity that exists on your team? And if they're not sure, or they want to know, well, what can I do? There's three things you can do. Number one, you can create an environment on your team where everybody on your team feels as though their voice is going to be heard. And sure, managers are always giving feedback to their teams, but do you create an environment where your team feels that they can give you feedback and give feedback to the rest of the team members? It's up to the leader to establish that climate. Number two, how do you resolve conflict? I would say the most effective managers that I know that manage the diversity on their teams and create an inclusive work environment for their teams resolve conflicts by making sure that that they're very transparent. Sometimes when a manager makes decisions that the team doesn't go along with, the team believes that the manager may have a certain intent. And therefore, because they assign a certain intent, it leads them to distrust the leader. But if the leader is transparent and clarifies the intent of his or her actions and takes into consideration that every decision a manager makes has an impact on somebody on their team. And by simply clarifying what the intent of your action is and acknowledging that you understand it's going to have an impact, both good and bad, your team, the members of your team will will trust you more. Third, explain the reasons why behind your decisions. A lot of leaders, are about getting results and getting them in the fastest, quickest, most cost-effective way. But do you take the time to simply explain why is it that the team needs to take a certain action in the first place, and then get their buy-in? If you do those three things, if you create a climate where everybody on the team feels that their voice can be heard and that they can give you and everybody on the team feedback, if you resolve conflict by being transparent and explaining the intent and acknowledging the impact of your decisions, and then if you simply explain the why behind your decision, that will make everyone on the team, that increases the probability that everybody on the team is going to feel that regardless of the diverse background or experience or the difference that they bring to your team, that they are going to be a fully respected, productive, and engaged member of the team. Those three things absolutely positively work. And, if your leaders are saying, well, how do I get more about this? I would refer them to a book that I published entitled Diversity Managers, Angels of Mercy or Barbarians at the Gate, where we talk about those three tips along with dozens of other tips that cost you no money. These are budget neutral, budget friendly things that managers can do every day to leverage the diversity that already exists on their teams.
I really like, thank you for that, Dr. Goode. I like when you mentioned the why, right? Where managers need to take some time and explain the reasons why certain initiatives are being discussed, et cetera, et cetera. Let's stay there for a minute. What does the why sound like? So the why sound like for diversity. So if you're a leader or a manager and you're trying to convince your team about the value of diversity, what does that why statement sound like?
Well, that's excellent, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to go into that a little bit more detail. Mm-hmm. Because again, like I said, a lot of managers are so bottom line results oriented that sometimes they just don't know. They just don't take that extra little bit of time to explain, the whys behind decisions. So, when you're explaining the whys behind decisions, the first thing that you do is to clearly state, what the decision is. You clearly state what the business rationale is for the decision. The next thing that you do is, like I said, you acknowledge the fact that yes, this is possibly going to impact individuals on the team, and you acknowledge, hey, this is how I understand this could impact you on the team. But then you talk about the benefits of the decision, and then you answer the question that everybody wants to know. What's in it for me? If we are going to go to if we're changing something as simple as the number of days from which you can work from home, from, let's say that needs to change for some business reason, from a policy where, you can work from home 5 days, but all of a sudden a change needs to be made. And maybe now the decision is, we need to, limit that to 3 days. There's a business reason behind it. You should simply explain why, and the impact that could have on people. But you also say, hey, I understand this means you got to come into the office, a couple days, but that will. Then you say, well, what's in it for? You answer that question. What's in it for me? Well, you get a chance to collaborate in person with your team. We get a chance to do some bonding and maybe some just-in-time training, and you point out, some of the benefits. Even though people are going to focus on the impact of having to come to the office, there's always a benefit, and And
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. You mentioned a little while ago that every team is diverse. I think there's some misconceptions out there that when we talk about diversity, we're only talking about race. But could you elaborate a little bit on what diverse means? Because some people think that it just has to do with culture, with the color of someone's skin, but there's a lot more to diversity than that, right? People misconceive diversity to just mean the color of your skin. They equate it to racism. What is the real definition of diversity when it comes to the workplace?
so, and it's very simple. Diversity. First of all, let's talk about. We're talking about diversity. What are we talking about? We're talking about, like you said, like you've already acknowledged. You're talking about
Yes.
physical traits such as gender, race, ethnicity. It could be appearance, whether or not a person is tall or short. It could be voice tone. It could be words. It could be behaviors. It could be communication style. Obviously, it could be age. It could be your work tempo, your background, your experience, your education, your country of birth, how you like to work. Do you like to work alone or work with teams? What's your thinking style? Obviously, sexual orientation, religion, sexual identity, all those. So again, when you think about diversity, every team is diverse. You could have a team of all white females, and that team would still be diverse because you've got differences in terms of age, background, thinking styles, and so that I would ask people to think about the fact that we all have diverse experiences, and those experiences create our perceptions, and those perceptions influence how we approach work situations, at work. Our individual differences also include our different lifestyles, personality, and life experience. And all of these form our unique view, place of the work and the people that we work with. So that's when we're talking diversity, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about what is it about our background that impacts and affects how we view work, how we view the workplace that we work with.
Thanks, Dr. Goode. When you're in your roles, and I remember a little while ago you mentioned Georgia Power, and you started off with a lot of initiatives. I think you mentioned 33 specific initiatives that they put on your plate. That was a lot. Were there any specific challenges that you encountered in rolling out those specific diversity initiatives that you can think of, that you can share with the community?
Yeah, so there was two. We had 33. And again, I had a team, but we also had about 60 people that was divided into 4 teams. So we had 15 people looking at work practices. We had 15 people looking at processes. We had 15 people that was dealing with workplace behaviors, and we had another 15 people that were looking at things that were external to our company, but maybe was affecting how we operated internally. So we had 15 people looking at the 33 initiatives and those 33 initiatives were bucketed into 4 different buckets. But out of all the 33 that we had 2 that were very, very difficult. And we identified those as being, if we felt like if we could change 2 of the 33, we could accomplish almost 80% of our goal. 2. One of them was how we went about hiring, promoting, and developing and selecting people for leadership. The company had a strong bias to hire from within and to promote from within, and people there weren't that many opportunities to start with. So every single opportunity was highly competitive. And so people wanted to know that they had a fair shot. And so we had to do a lot of work to change the process, to train our managers, and then also to convince people that, that the process was going to be fair, and that anytime an opportunity came up, if they expressed an interest in the opportunity, they were going to have a fair shot. The second big item was people felt like if they challenged, if they spoke up, if they questioned the status quo, that it was going to somehow come back to haunt them in some kind of way. And so we had to, again, get to the root cause of that, because when we looked at the actual data, we had no data to substantiate that, but people still felt that way. So we had to have focus groups with hundreds of employees to get to the bottom of that. And we identified, they helped us identify probably close to 10 things that they believed needed to change before they would believe that the company actually would be a company that was open and had a climate where people could offer suggestions, offer criticisms, and recommendations. And so those two things, improving the selection process and changing the culture of fear that people had around rocking the boat, so to speak. Those two ones were particularly difficult to take on, and but as expected, once we successfully took those on and put in some change management initiatives, we were right. Those two things on their own merit probably moved the needle as far as moving the culture to where I believe the culture is for that company today. And
so, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dr. Goode.
No, you go ahead.
So communication and listening was critical to moving the needle with your initiatives.
Oh, absolutely. But more importantly, I think the most important word for those initiatives and any initiatives that I've ever been involved with at any organization that I've been involved with is sustainability. What is so difficult about diversity and inclusion work is you can't just do a training program. You can't implement a change to the performance management system. You have to put in place initiatives and incentives so that those things become the new normal. And that's the hardest part of the work is identifying what needs to be changed is pretty easy. People will give you feedback on that. Putting initiatives in place to actually bring about change, that's difficult. But putting in place accountability measures and mechanisms so that things don't revert back to the old way, that is the hardest part of diversity and diversity and inclusion work is sustainability.
Yeah, for sure. Can you repeat the title of your current book or your books? Because you have a few. What are the books that you have in the pipeline?
So the first book is So You Think You Can Teach, and that book is primarily targeted toward college professors, particularly those that are new to the profession. The second book is particularly targeted at diversity leaders and organizations, and it's entitled Diversity Managers, Angels of Mercy or Barbarians at the Gate. And then the third book is targeted at community leaders that are involved in community work. And the name of that book is Crisis, as a platform for social change in communities. And so so 3 different books targeted at 3 different audiences, but it's all 3 books are books that anybody could pick up and pick up and get some tips on how to leverage the diversity that you have on your team, in your company, in your community, for the betterment of the team, the company, or the community.
I hope you don't mind me asking this question, but I've been dying to ask you how you came up with the second title.
Which one? The diversity book?
That has angels.
Yeah.
Angels. The second one.
Yeah. So.
Interesting title. At least the subtitle.
If you think about, if we're really honest, and I'm talking particularly to my diversity professionals here, if you're really honest about the work that we do, there are 2 competing perspectives about the work. There's a lot of myths, there's a lot of misunderstanding, but there are 2 camps, 2 basic camps that have distinct perspectives about the work that we do. There's one camp that believes that all we do is, and I'll be explicit and candid, I would say white males in particular in organizations believe that people like myself, that what we do is put in place programs that particularly and only benefit people of color and females, and that these programs often come at the expense of white males. That is one camp. And that camp views us as barbarians at the gate. There is another camp. There's another camp that believes that we're there to put in programs that will hyper accelerate their development. That we're there to simply increase the number or the percentage of people of color or females in an organization, or that we're there to take away all of the frustration that they may be facing on their team or the organization, and that camp views us as angels of mercy. The problem with both of those perspectives is that they're both wrong. Both of those perspectives are absolutely, positively, 100% inaccurate. What diversity and inclusion work is about. It is about creating, taking intentional actions so that, considering the fact that you have diversity in an organization, you have people that come to work with different ideas and ways and approaches to work. Diversity work is about taking intentional action to create an environment where all of that diversity can be leveraged for the benefit of the organization, with the assumption that what's in the best interest of the organization is in the best interest of the employees and the leaders of that organization. For an example, if an organization meets or exceeds its goals, there's usually going to be an increase in net income. There's going to be an increase in earnings per share. There's going to be a decrease in cost. That usually means that the company is profitable and doing well for both its shareholders, its employees, and other stakeholders. Most companies, for-profit companies, will then share that benefit with their leaders and their employees in the form of bonuses, short-term and long-term incentives. So again, the diversity work is there so that teams, so that individuals can perform at their highest level. As a result, their teams perform at the highest level, and as a result, the entire organization performs at the highest level. If that's the case, there's benefits for everyone. And that is what the work is about. It's not about trying to win awards. It's not trying to make sure one group benefits over another group. It's not about necessarily coming in and addressing the frustration that individuals may be facing on their teams. There are other mechanisms for that. There are other processes and practices in place for that. But diversity management is there to help the organization be as successful as it possibly can. And embedded in that is that if that's the case, everyone benefits. Everyone benefits, both tangibly and intangibly. So that's what the book is about. The book is about explaining what I just said and providing scientific empirical evidence that everything I just said is in fact can scientifically be shown to be the case. But the title is an acknowledgement that there are competing views about the work, which are both views are inaccurate.
That was a clarification worth making. Thank you so much. I kept wondering, why you chose that title. Thank you for explaining. So if the community wants to go out and purchase this book, where should they go?
I would encourage them to go to Amazon. Amazon has the absolute positive best price. They will, in most cases, ship the book free. And if you are a person that likes to that likes your books in the e-reader form, all of the books are available in e-reader form at a very, very, very affordable price.
Okay. And if they want to learn a little bit more about your work, Dr. Goode, and keep in touch with you, contact you, how do they reach you? Are you on social media?
I am. I am constantly sharing what I would call tips and tools to manage your diverse work teams and create an inclusive workplace. I also have shared and have published over 24 articles. I'm do the same thing on LinkedIn. And if any of your participants on today's show I would encourage them to connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's continue the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today again, Dr. Goode. This was really, really good stuff.